afternoon. I'm Rabbi Eddie Sukal from the Shul. This would be a good moment for everyone to make sure that your cell phones are turned off so we are not disturbed during our service. Shiviti Adonai L'negdi Tamid Ki mini Bal Emot. I have set the Eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. I know that you will not abandon me to death, O God, nor will you let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. It is a curiosity that tradition would have us begin a funeral or memorial service with a passage from the Psalms that speaks of an exulting heart, which speaks of joy and happiness, when the mood is exactly the opposite today. Today is a day of grief and sadness and mourning. Today is a day of saying goodbye. But we begin this way with this paradoxical verse as a way right from the outset to remind ourselves that though this is a sad day, we also reach deep into our souls to find the strength to not only cope with our grief, but to be grateful for the gift of Herb's life, for all that was good and wonderful and rich in his life. And so we do grieve, and our grief is tinged with gratitude. Since the beginning of time, when we face death, we ask the eternal questions about the meaning of life and its purpose. The psalmist put it this way: O God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? It seems that we are little more than a breath, our days like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass. In the morning it shoots up renewed, and yet in the evening it fades and withers. You cause us to return to dust, saying, Return, O you mortal creatures. If only we were wise and understood where we are going. But this we do know. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They shall know true peace. Barbara, to you, and to Gary, and to Ron, and to all the family, we gather with you today to remember Herb, to remember him in the fullness of his life, in the richness of his years. And we who gather with you understand that you grieve in a darkened world. We know that in your silence there is sadness, and in your tears loneliness. We gather with you that we might embrace you and reach out and comfort you, and that you might find the presence of loving family and friends to be a comfort at this sad time. And we gather also not only that we might comfort you, but to call upon God on your behalf and to ask God to be with you and ask God to comfort you and embrace you. Herb would be the first one to say, I'm so lucky. That's the way he lived his life. That's the way he saw his life. And that attitude gave him a love for all of you and for a circle of friends that brought all of us together in life. And that love was and is a powerful love, and it doesn't evaporate with his death. Herb's love for all of you is a love which death does not and cannot sever. It stays with you in your hearts. And it's out of that love that we are thankful for the companionship that you had with him over the years. And we are thankful for the gifts of his heart and his mind, those things that he did and said that brought joy and laughter into our lives. And we are thankful for the many, many memories that we have. All of these are a precious gift. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot desha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'ma'agalei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha, hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi kosi rivaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti beveit Adonai la'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. To share words of tribute, I'd like to call the grandchildren to come forward, and a couple of them are going to share their reflections on behalf of all of them.
I don't know how to. Okay, bear with me. Okay, our Grandpa Herb. Even though we weren't blood, to us he wasn't our grandma's husband or our step grandpa. He was just truly Grandpa. And believe me when I tell you, really, he lived up to that title. Whether it was picking us Hamiltons up from school every Monday afternoon, attending choir concerts and dance recitals, and going to baseball games, he was always there for us when we needed support. From swimming laps and playing games with us at Grandma and Grandpa's neighborhood pool every weekend, to having us sleep over and allowing us to play in his cool exercise room, to spending the day with us when we were homesick from school, he was always there to entertain. There was the one time we spent the entire day traveling with him to Oregon for a Kranitz bar mitzvah, and he just had to have his vodka fix at the airport, which he ended up getting ID'd for, may I add. But Grandpa would laugh to himself and say, "I don't shivig it." There were the times he would tell us about growing up in Brooklyn, New York, rooting for the Dodgers in the World Series and playing stickball in the streets. He would proudly tell us about his times in the Korean War. He was so proud of those days that one time on Memorial Day, he dug through all of the belongings and found the coat and hat he used to wear in the military. He held his head high and wore the get-up the whole day as he told us stories with so much pride. Hanging out with Grandpa on any normal day was always a joy, but I can assure you, that it was the days when you were feeling down, or that it was the days when you were feeling down, or where it was truly the best, Whether you were just having a bad day or you were just feeling down on yourself, Grandpa would be there to tell you how amazing you were. He would hold your hand with his iron grip that he was so proud of and say, "I love you." He would say, "Boy, you sure look great," or "I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have you kids." To my mom and Aunt Amy, he would say, "I've never had daughters. I'm so lucky." And last but not least, to my grandma, he would look at her in the eyes and he would just say, "Honey, I love you." Our Grandpa Herb taught us many things, but one in particular was how to love. As James recalls, he once was going on and on about how he would always be all right as long as he had us. And that is the most wonderful part about Grandpa. Being around the people he loved never failed to put a smile on his face. And let me just say, he had the best smile in the world. He taught us to be open-minded and positive and showed us the importance of embracing life and being thankful for what you are given. Now, we can't talk about Grandpa Herb without touching on what he did for our Grandma Barb. He did anything for her and respected and supported her through it all. He treated her entire family as if they were his own. And he brought his family and hers together into one dynamic, awesome group of people. We are all so thankful to have had such a caring, sensitive, good-hearted man whose contagious laugh would make anyone smile in our life. We are lucky to have such an amazing human touch us and impact us, our lives, with nothing but kindness. We love you, Grandpa Herb.
Seriously? Carly kind of stole half my speech, but it's really not as good now. Okay, so we were deciding which grandchild would talk today. I was his favorite, so it was a no-brainer. But seriously, I was the first grandchild. I was the first girl one of the first girls in a very long line of boys in the Goldberg and Diamond families. So I don't think he knew what to do with a girl. The things that we used to do for fun were not girly things, for sure. When I was like about 4 years old, this is our favorite story. He took me out fishing, and we went to Fairport Harbor on the rocks, and we had everything set up with a chair, and his glasses were on it, and his keys were on it, and like everything. And we're fishing, and he's not very good at fishing. And like a big gust of wind came, and it blew it right into the water. And I was like scared out of my mind. I think it scarred me for life. My kids know I still don't like fishing. Like, it's a terrible experience, but it's like the funniest story he used to ever tell. He thought it was hilarious. And then like a few years later, he took us to Niagara Falls and like forced us to go on to the Maid of the Mist. I was still like devastated from like this fishing incident of 1987. Like, I was scared out of my mind from it. He taught me how to play 3-card poker like a champ. I am a shark. He taught me which vodka not to drink because he drank the worst. He would make me go work the flea markets and the IX centers with him, the shows, whether I wanted to or not. I usually did want to go. Barb and I were just talking about this, that one time there was a massive snowstorm, and he probably didn't even need my help because I don't think anyone was coming to shop at the IX center in a massive snowstorm, but he made me go with him, and we were coming home, and it was such a bad snowstorm that he could not pull down my street. So he had to let me off at the corner of the street, and I had to walk. It was 11:30 at night, and I was 10 years old. And he had me walking, and he told me, "You're tough. You got this." Thanks, Grandpa. He taught me so much more, though, than how to be a good boy. He taught me work ethic. He was completely all-American. He was such a proud member of the Electricians Union, such a proud veteran. He worked so hard. I remember him being well into his 70s when I bought my first house, and he was insistent that he was going to be the one to go up in the attic and do all the rewiring of the electrical. Not my father-in-law, who was also an electrician, who was much younger at the time. So he also taught me the importance of family. Most of you know that my grandmother passed away before I was born. Barb is also my grandmother, so I was fortunate to have two. But my grandmother passed before I was born, and her memory always lived on through his stories that he would tell me. I was most impressed with the relationship that he kept with her family because they were his family. My Uncle Marty told me that that was not his brother-in-law, that was his brother. Grandpa used to hang a sheet in the basement of their Willoughby condo, and he would play like old home videos, like on the, literally that was our screen. And we would watch videos of my dad and his brothers when they were young. He loved his family. The main thing that he taught me was love. How many men can say that they met the love of their life twice? He used to tell me how lucky he was. Barb and my grandpa had their first date when I was a week old, and they got married when I was 4. They would have been married 30 years in about 2 weeks. Do the math. You know how old I am. Barb took the words in sickness and in health to heart. The last few years were hard, and she was there. And he knew it, and he knew she was there even when he didn't know it. And he knew how lucky he was. How many men get that lucky? My husband is that lucky. Even in the end, when this terrible disease had taken over, there were parts of him that were still there. If for nothing more than to tell us, you guys are great, or you look good, honey, he was still there. About an hour before he passed, he was holding my hand, and he still gripped my hand. And I thought it was funny that Carly sure enough brought up that grip because he was so proud of that grip, literally up until the end. I asked my brothers if they wanted me to say anything today. Ryan told me, no, I just have a ton of old golf stories and jokes that only he would get. And I said that I think he made up the jokes to make up for his lack of golf skills. My brother Adam told me that he was jealous because Grandpa gets to be with Grandma Doe and Uncle Phil and all the other amazing people that we've lost, and I couldn't agree more. So as you have feelings of sadness, just remember that even when life is long, it is too short, so don't worry, because he wouldn't shiv a get.
There can be no more fitting words of tribute than those that come directly from grandchildren and from family. And our tradition teaches that words that come from the heart enter directly into the heart. And so we thank you for sharing with us. As has been noted, Herb considered himself remarkably lucky. Despite life's hardships, and he had his share, he felt fortunate. One of you said it to me the other day in this way, 2 lives, 2 wives. And he did believe that he found the love of his life 2 times. And in true Herb style, there were never stepchildren or step-grandchildren. Everybody was a child and a grandchild. Everybody was family. His heart wasn't divided into chambers on whether you were born in or married into the family. He took everyone in. And of course, many of you here are lifelong friends of Herb. And you have experiences with him and memories of him and times enjoyed together and celebrations and fun and travel. we say that children are our investment in the future, and grandchildren the interest on that investment. Great-grandchildren must be some kind of wild compound interest. In this light, Barbara, you and Herb were remarkably wealthy. 11 grandchildren. I didn't count all the children. I can't do the math that quick. 11 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. How fortunate, how lucky he was. And how he loved all of you. There was so much in life that he loved, and so many people in life that he loved and cared for. But you, his children and grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, know that you were at the front of his heart and mind. And Barbara, you as well. The love that he had for you. The love that he shared with all of you. Remarkable. He was an electrician in his working life, his craft. He retired about 1987, but he didn't really retire because after retirement he began to work flea markets and other opportunities to sell things. Ron told me that if you had one of those colored phone cords for your landline, which we didn't call it then, it was just a phone. You probably got it from her because he had every color imaginable. Basement and garage filled with things that he sold. He was smart that way. He started with some electrical things and phone supplies and hoses, but if there was some cash to be made selling clothes or t-shirts, whatever it was, he was there. And as you heard, he took some of the grandchildren with him. He would rope anyone into working with him in that endeavor. Barbara, you were fortunate that you got to travel together around this country, many trips together with friends, to Hawaii, to Europe, cruises over the years. Herb was a sentimental kind of guy. That's just who he was. The last few years have not been kind. And Barbara, you were remarkable in taking care of him. Kept him at home longer than you should have, longer than all of your friends said you should have. But that was really just illustrative of the kind of relationship that the two of you had. You cared for and did for each other, whatever it took. What I hope for all of you is that the difficulty of the last couple of years, the last few years, let those challenges recede into the background. And remember him instead in the fullness of his life, in the robustness of his life. That big heart, that big smile that he had. Let those be your memories. You'll remember the hard times as well, but remember more the times spent together in celebration and joy and laughter. When we die, we take nothing with us from the world. Whatever we've acquired materially, we leave behind. In Jewish tradition, we bury our dead with open hands rather than clenched fists as a way to indicate that we take nothing with us. What survives us that is significant is not material goods. What survives us is the memories that we leave behind with those that we loved and that loved us. What we leave behind is the relationships. And some people, and Herb was one of them, in the way that he lived and the way he loved, he earned for himself the Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name. It's the highest honor one can achieve, the crown of a good name. That's how we knew him, and that's how we know him still. And his crown of a good name is bequeathed to all of you. And it's yours now. And every time you tell somebody they look good, you wear his crown and honor his memory. And every time you do for another person and help them, whether it's in a quiet way or a grand way, every time you help someone, you carry his crown of a good name into the future. You honor his life and pay tribute to him. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. The memory of a good and a righteous man is forever a blessing to all of us who knew him. Amen. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us we see life and death, decay and renewal, a flowing rhythm that all things must obey. It seems that our life is a dance to a song we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while and then seems to cease. Whence the melody? Whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, O God, the source of life, and the answer to all its mysteries. Please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmato Hirsch Velvel ben Moshe Shehalach le'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana Bal Harachamim Hastireha Beseter Kanafecha Le'olamim Vayitzror Bitzro HaChaim Et Nishmato Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Herbert William Goldberg, Hirsch Velvel ben Moshe. He has now entered eternity. And we pray, O God of mercy, may he find refuge in your eternal presence. Allow his soul to be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Along with his sons who survive him, Ron and Gary, and their families, we of course also remember Philip Goldberg, Phil of blessed memory. For those that might wish to honor Herb's memory with a charitable contribution, the family suggests that you direct your generosity to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation here in Independence, Ohio. Shiva will be observed today and tomorrow 8313 Clover Ridge Road, Chagrin Falls. I'm told if you don't know where that is, you have to put Chagrin Falls in your GPS and not Russell, because you'll never find it otherwise. 8313 Clover Ridge Road. Herb was an Army veteran serving in Korea. His casket is draped with the American flag, which will be presented to his family. And following the presentation of the flag, I would like to ask everyone to please rise, and Ron will play taps in his father's memory.